power. That's been his argument. But now, suddenly, John McCain says he's about change too. He's even started using some of my lines. Suddenly he says he wants to turn the page. He had an ad today that he started running saying he and Governor Palin would bring, guess what? The change that we need. He had this in an advertisement. Sound familiar? Let me tell you something. Instead of borrowing my lines, he needs to borrow some of our ideas. Change isn't about slogans. It's about substance. And if Senator McCain now wants to talk about who can bring change to Washington, then that's a debate. That's a debate that I'm happy to have. Listen, it's great that he now wants to talk about putting corporate lobbyists in their place. But he needs to explain why he put 7 of them in charge of his campaign. Lobbyists for the insurance industry, and for the oil industry, and for Freddie Mac, and for foreign governments. And if you think those lobbyists are working day and night for John McCain just to put themselves out of business, well, I've got a bridge to sell you up in Alaska. I agree with John McCain that bipartisanship and independence are important, but it was just a few months ago that he was bragging about how he voted with George Bush 90% of the time. What kind of judgment or independence does that show if you think George Bush was right 90% of the time? I don't know about you, but I'm not ready to take a 10% chance on change. That's a risk this country cannot afford. Not this time, not now, and that's why I'm not Mr. President of the United States. We are facing some serious challenges in this country. But environment's one of them. But on just about every economic issue, there is not a dime's worth of difference between John McCain's proposals and what we have right now. In 19 months, he has not named one thing he would do differently from this administration on the central issue of this election. Not one thing. And we know that if we go down that path, then the next 4 years will look exactly like the last 8. So, when you walk into that voting booth in 50 days, ask yourself, can your family afford to take a chance on an economic policy that offers $200 billion in tax breaks to the biggest corporations, including the oil companies, but not one penny of relief to more than 100 million Americans? Because that's what Senator McCain is offering. Can you afford to take a chance on a health care plan that would tax your benefits for the first time in American history? Or an education plan that does nothing to help your kids pay for college? Or a retirement plan that would privatize Social Security and gamble your life savings on the stock market? Because those are his plans, those are his ideas. Can you afford to take a chance on someone who's voted against the minimum wage 19 times? When it was $4, he was against it. When it was $5, he was against it. When it was $6, he was against it. That's his record. That's not a risk I'm willing to take. That's not the America I know. And that's not the future I want for my children and yours. Colorado, we can't afford that kind of future. Now, I want to be clear. It's not that I think John McCain doesn't care what's going on in the lives of most Americans. I just think he doesn't know. He doesn't get what's happening between the mountain in Sedona where he lives and the corridors of power where he works. Why else would he say that we've made great progress economically under George Bush? Why else would he say that the economy isn't something he understands as well as he should? Why else would he say today, of all days, just a few hours ago, think about this, we just woke up to news of financial disaster, and this morning he said that the fundamentals of the economy are still strong. Senator McCain, what economy are you talking about? What's more fundamental than the ability to find a job that pays the bills and that can raise a family? What's more fundamental than knowing that your life savings is secure and that you can retire with dignity? What's more fundamental than knowing that you'll have a roof over your head at the end of the day? What's more fundamental than that? Colorado, the fundamentals we use to measure economic strength or whether we are living up to that fundamental promise that has made this country great. That promise that America is the place where you can make it if you try. The promise that is the only reason why we're standing here today. You know, when I talk to those young veterans that are coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, I see my grandfather who signed up after Pearl Harbor, who marched in Patton's Army, and who was rewarded by a grateful nation with the chance to go to college on the GI Bill. In the face of that young student who sleeps just 3 hours a night before working the night shift because she's taking care of an ill sister, I think about my mom who raised my sister and me on her own while she worked and earned her degree, who once had to turn to food stamps because she was still struggling to get through school, but was somehow still able to send me and my sister to the best schools in the country. And when I listen to another worker tell me that his factory is shut down, or a family farmer saying that he's going to have to sell after all, I remember all those men and women on the south side of Chicago, all those folks in southern Illinois who I fought for, first as an organizer 2 decades ago after the local steel plant closed, then as a state legislator dealing with those issues. Those are my heroes. Theirs are my stories. They're the ones who helped shape me. And it is on their behalf that I intend to win this election and keep the promise of America alive as President of the United States of America. It's on their behalf that I intend to keep that promise alive. You know, from the day we began this campaign, I've said the change we need is both the change in our policies and a change in our politics. If we want to meet the challenges we've talked about for decades, we need to end the entire culture of money and influence in Washington. We need to stop the partisan point scoring and the petty bickering that serves the needs of politicians but not the American people. We have always been at our best when we've had leaders that can rally this nation around a common purpose, around a higher purpose. And I'm running for President of the United States because that's the country we need to be right now. So Colorado, let me spell out exactly how I would keep that promise if I'm president. Let me tell you what real change means. Not change as a slogan, but change that will make a real impact in your lives. Change is a Washington where corporate lobbyists and their clients don't set the agenda, you do. So I've spent my career taking on lobbyists and their money, and I have won. If you wanted a special favor in Illinois, when I first got to the legislature, there was actually a law